Good morning. It is Friday the 6th of March. I'm Maeve McMahon and this is Europe Today. Your daily dose of European news and analysis live here on Euronews. Coming up from Tehran to Tel Aviv, Baku to Beirut, Dubai to Doha. The entire Middle East is on tenterhooks. Israel says it's moving into the second phase of the war and has issued an evacuation order for residents of Hezbollah strongholds in Beirut. Explosions were also heard in Dubai and Doha, with Qatar's defence ministry reporting they intercepted Iranian ballistic missiles and shot down Iranian drones. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan's president has ordered the armed forces to prepare for the highest level of combat readiness after a reported drone attack injured 4 people. And US President Donald Trump says he wants a say in picking Iran's next supreme leader. This as Iran fires missiles towards Tel Aviv and Hezbollah warns Israelis on the Lebanese border this morning to leave their homes. To keep us up to date on the conflict that is spiralling in all directions, Euronews has correspondents all across the globe. For the latest from Qatar, we can now cross first to Doha, where Euronews correspondent Adil Khalim is standing by for us this morning. Adil, Gulf states are on high alert this Friday. Can you just bring us up to speed? What is the situation there this morning?
Dave, people here in Doha were woken up around 3:30 this morning by a loud national emergency alert on our phones, indicating an elevated risk. Soon after, Qatar's Ministry of Defense indicated that it captured a drone heading towards the Al Udeid Air Base. Now, that's the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, home to 10,000 troops. And now that came just 24 hours after a series of loud explosions were heard in the skies across the city, starting just before noon. It was the largest barrage of missile attacks that we've seen here since the start of this war a week ago. Qatar says its air defenses intercepted 4 drones and 13 ballistic missiles. Officials say a 14th missile landed in Qatari territorial waters. Now, diplomatically, tensions are also rising. On Thursday, Gulf and EU foreign ministers held a virtual emergency meeting condemning what they call unjustified Iranian attacks on GCC states and warning they threaten regional and international security. Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani said that Qatar has long tried to act as a bridge between and these recent attacks are putting those bilateral relations under severe strain. Now, we're also seeing new military support pledged for the region. Italy says it will send air defense systems to the Gulf states, while the UK is deploying 4 more Typhoon fighter jets to Qatar to support its defense operations. Meanwhile, the disruption is also affecting travel. Airspace here in Qatar is still closed. 8,000 travelers are still stranded, and flight tracking service FlightAware says nearly 25,000 flights have been cancelled since this war began. Maeve?
OK, Adel Khalim, thank you so much for that live update from Doha. You mentioned, of course, foreign ministers meeting with their counterparts from the Gulf. We'll have more on that later. But now moving on from Azerbaijan to the Indian Ocean, the conflict is spreading. Azerbaijan has accused Tehran of launching 4 drones that injured 4 people in the past 24 hours. The government is furious and demanding explanations. For more on this, we can cross now over to Baku and bring in Euronews correspondent Nadira Tudor. Nadira, thanks for joining us. Just tell us first, what's the latest?
Well, as you can imagine, Azerbaijan has been deeply shaken by the drone strike. When it happened, I spoke to a number of locals, and they said to me following the attack on Saturday that they had a really bad feeling. They were worried because of the escalation within the region. And we know that UAVs did attack an international airport. But what has sent shockwaves through the country is the fact that there was a school nearby. And it has been confirmed by emergency services that 4 people were injured in the attack, but we don't know what those injuries are as of yet. Officials say that the technical details of the drone and the full scale of the attack are still being investigated, and the government has also summoned Iran's ambassador in Baku, demanding an explanation.
Well, that's the question, I guess. Who's being blamed for this attack? Has anyone taken responsibility yet?
Well, it is a very interesting situation that is unfolding. From Azerbaijan's point of view, it is clear that they're saying that the Islamic Republic of Iran are responsible. If we look at what Iran's response is, they have said they are not responsible. They're denying it, and they are pointing the finger at Israel, even suggesting that Israel has been attempting to damage the relationship between Azerbaijan and Iran. If we look at Israel's response, they are not claiming responsibility, they're not claiming any involvement. So what we have is a bit of a strange situation now, and almost it looks like a diplomatic blame game.
OK, a very sensitive situation, of course. Nadira Tudor there reporting for us live from Baku this morning. Thank you so much for that update. But now, moving on, the United States has asked Ukraine for help to fend off Iranian drone attacks in the Middle East. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said. For more on this side of the story, we're joined here on set by our very own Ukraine correspondent, Sasha Vakalina. So good morning, Sasha. So while Ukraine on one hand is still fighting their own war, they're offering to help here. Fill us in.
Indeed, Volodymyr Zelensky said he had a round of talks with the leaders from Middle East who are interested in Ukraine's expertise in intercepting and shooting down Iranian Shahed-type drones, given that Russia has been launching hundreds of those at Ukraine every night, and Ukraine's interception rate is now standing at over 80%. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky said indeed that Ukraine received a request from the United States for specific support in protection against Shaheds in the Middle East region. I give instructions to provide the necessary means and ensure the presence of Ukrainian specialists who can guarantee the required security. Now, Zelensky also gave a hint on what is it that Kyiv might expect in return for this help.
We are constantly working with our partners on our ability to provide protection to those countries that are currently under attack from Iran. Security support from Ukraine will be provided. The main thing is that this will allow us to expand our security cooperation with our partners. By protecting countries from the Iranian regime, we are adding to our own defense capabilities.
Zelensky said that during 3 days of the war in the Middle East, more than 800 Patriot missiles were used. This is more than Ukraine ever received in over 4 years of Russia's full-scale invasion.
And Sasha, last week we were reporting extensively on that spat over the Druzhba pipeline. And we've heard now President Zelensky saying that suggesting perhaps that he could restore it. What exactly did he say?
The situation escalated massively on Thursday when Viktor Orban started saying that he wants to unblock and he's ready to unblock it by force. And that's when it started, when he said that indeed Hungary there will be no deals, no compromise. We will break the Ukrainian oil blockade by force. Hungary's energy will soon flow again through the friendship pipeline. Now, to this, Volodymyr Zelensky responded that he personally is indeed reluctant to reopen it, saying that this is the money that Russia is using to finance its full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
To be honest, I would not restore it. That is my position. I have communicated it to the European leaders and to those who have contacted me on this matter, as well as to the leadership of the European Union, because this is Russian oil. There are certain things and principles that are priceless and simply cannot be compromised. They are killing us, and we have to give oil to Orban because, poor thing, he cannot win elections without it.
Zelensky did reiterate that it will take between 1 month and 1.5 months for Ukraine to repair the Druzhba pipeline, and this is underway, Maeve.
OK, a story we're also keeping a very close eye on. Sasha Vakalina, thank you so much for all those updates. And now, the same way drones are changing the way wars are fought in 2026, artificial intelligence is quietly becoming part of modern warfare too. But as the technology grows more powerful, so do questions about how and whether it should be used. Jakub Janis takes a look.
Next time you visit your therapist, they might ask a simple question. How's your relationship with your AI model? And if you say complicated, you might have a point. Recently, OpenAI, so the maker of ChatGPT, reached an agreement with the US Department of War for classified military use. And this got your reporter thinking, how is AI used in warfare right now? Let's start with cybersecurity. On the digital front, the Iran conflict triggered a surge in geopolitical cyber attacks, which are now deployed right alongside physical weapons. And with the rise of AI deepfakes and a highly personalized phishing emails, experts warn that you can no longer rely on what you see and what you hear. And that's great to hear, isn't it? But what about the strategy simulation? Before reaching the battlefield, AI is tested in war games. And in a recent study, models including ChatGPT, Claude and Gemini were placed into simulated crises. And the results were alarming, as in every game at least one AI escalated the conflict by threatening to use nuclear weapons. Finally, during recent airstrikes on Iran, the US military relied on Anthropic's Claude to identify targets. But after Anthropic refused the Pentagon unrestricted access over ethical concerns, OpenAI immediately stepped in to take the contract. The company insists the agreement strictly prohibits domestic mass surveillance and requires human oversight for weapons. Defending the deal, the CEO Sam Altman posted, I quote, "We remain committed to serve all humanity as best we can. The world is a complicated, messy and sometimes dangerous place." End quote. So it seems that deal would result in either more commitment to humanity or more complications and dangerous places. So as I told you, it is complicated. Right, ChatGPT?
Jakob Yanis reporting for us there. And back here in Brussels, the EU is on high alert and monitoring the situation in the Middle East and its impact on us. EU foreign ministers held remote talks yesterday to discuss the impact the war could have on migration flows, for example, even though for now the EU does not see any surges yet. Euronews' Mara Gwyn Jones spoke exclusively to the Swedish Minister for Migration, Johan Forssell. Take a look.
There is an escalating conflict in the Middle East. Could this trigger more migratory flows into Europe? And what are you and other ministers doing now to prepare?
Well, hopefully not. I think so far we're not seeing any signs really of any imminent waves of refugees leaving Iran. But of course, we also know from the war in Syria, for example, 10 years ago, that things can also change very quickly. But so far, we're not seeing any signs. But we are prepared, and also today's discussion focused on this in many ways, to prepare for things that we might not want to happen, but that might occur.
Is Europe equipped, though, to deal with more migratory flows? And are countries like Sweden able to accept potentially big waves of refugees moving in?
Well, I have said from the beginning that we cannot have what we had 10 years ago. We cannot have another refugee crisis. I mean, for obvious reasons, we are still struggling with many of the challenges and problems that we saw back in 2015. But also from a very practical point of view, 2015, we had a lot of chaos in our migration system in Europe. There were lacking housing, young adults that had to live with older people, etc., and a lot of chaos. Now we are in a completely new situation. We have the pact soon in place. We are better equipped. But I emphasize that we need to handle this situation if it occurs with other means. We need to be more in the region in itself, providing people with shelter, with development cooperation, humanitarian assistance, but receiving very many people, perhaps millions of people as refugees, I think that is impossible from many different reasons.
You also presented to your colleagues today a new initiative that you're leading to change the way that the Refugee Convention of 1951 is being applied. Tell us what your goals are here.
Well, our goal is not to change the Refugee Convention from 1951, but we want to make the guidelines regarding it clear on one thing, and that is for obvious reasons. I mean, most people that have a refugee status, they don't commit any crimes, they're honest people. But we've also seen lately some cases in Sweden, for example, where an individual, he was sentenced to 4 years of prison because of rape. But still, the Court of Appeal said that because of the fact that he had a refugee status, this rape was not grave enough for him to be expelled. I think that is outrageous. I think even though the convention is 75 years old, I mean, it would never have been written this way if it had been written today. So we want to change this description of it on the guideline. And that is this Swedish initiative that we're now moving forward with.
These would be people who have received refugee status, presumably because they are fleeing wars and conflict or persecution in their home countries. How would that work then if you were to deport an individual because they've committed a serious crime, when maybe in terms of international law, how would that work if that individual then faces a war or persecution at home?
Well, we also have the non-refoulement, of course, to take into consideration. But what I think is outrageous, and I think most people agree with me, is the fact that someone that has committed a rape being sentenced to 4 years of prison. It's insane that he is not even convicted or sentenced to expulsion. So we need to take one thing at a time here. And in order for this to happen, we need to change the guidelines, even though it has to do with the Refugee Convention.
Marit Jones there speaking to the Swedish Minister for Migration, Johan Forssell. But now, coming up with this Sunday being International Women's Rights Day, we'll be joined by Hadja Lahbib, the EU Commissioner for Women's Rights and Crisis Management. A Belgian Algerian, Hadja Lahbib worked before as a journalist, a TV presenter, a director and a national politician before joining the European Commission, where she now takes charge of driving the equality agenda and pushing forward women's rights. Commissioner Lahbib, lovely to have you here with us on Europe Today on Euronews. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, big story that you're following as well this week, emergency security talks inside the European Commission on the situation in Iran. Is the European Union ready for the impact this war will have on us?
You know, I'm the Commissioner for Preparedness, so we are prepared for anything. This is part of our preparedness strategy that we presented last year.
So did you expect that war to be triggered last Saturday?
We didn't expect, of course, no one except maybe the Israelis and the United States who followed the strike, by the way. But what is sure is that we are committed and prepared. We hold a first meeting on Sunday, immediately after the first strikes. And when it comes to the humanitarian crisis, because I'm also dealing with this, we are ready with stockpiles, with warehouses, with sleeping bags, with tents, with medical supplies, with everything. And we are monitoring also all kinds of risks. Nuclear risk, of course, because of Iran, maritime pollution, massive movement of migration, and so on. So we are monitoring everything, but the priority nowadays is the repatriation of our citizens. And so far, we have helped 15 member states who activate what we call the UCPM. It's a civil protection mechanism. It's a solidarity mechanism between the member states who want to repatriate, to host, or to ask for help.
And this Sunday is International Women's Day or Women's Rights Day. Is it a cause for celebration or observance? And also your message to Iranian women?
You know, I started my press conference yesterday with 3 words. Zan, Zindagi, Azadi. It's women, freedom and liberty, life. You know, it is a tribute to Iranian women, because I think that these 3 words who embody the revolution that happened after Mahsa Amini's killing is also international slogan. And we want to make it real. We want equality. And when it comes to Europe, you know, that's why we need to celebrate the achievement, what we have achieved, but also to look forward, what we have to change. And so far, following our studies and inquiries, we know that we are 50 years far away from equality in Europe.
And how are you pushing this agenda in a commission that's more focused on defence, competitiveness?
I mean, we are focusing on everything. When you talk about competitiveness, do you know that inequality in the labour market costs each year to European countries 390 billion? So if we want to be competitive, please, let's work on equality in the labour market first.
So will you push for more quotas, for example, to achieve gender parity?
Exactly. And we have, for instance, we want to transform Europe in a better place in the world for women to work in STEM, science, technology, and so on. And we want to have 1 million women in STEM, because if women are out of the design, table, inequality goes into, coded into the system. Okay. And with AI, we are talking about AI and all this, intelligence, artificial. And if we are out of this, we will just improve the inequalities.
Commissioner Lahbib, thank you so much for joining us here.
Too short.
Too short, always too short. A lot of issues, of course, to get through there. But thank you so much for being our guest. And thank you so much for watching. Take care and see you very soon here on Euronews.